You can get discouraged a lot of ways, but the one surefire way to avoid discouragement, first of all, let's understand something. We're all participating in this thing called life, all of us. Life has ebb and flows, mountaintops, it's got valleys, it's got thunderstorms in it, earthquakes. This life, you stop expecting it to go smooth, because it ain't finna go smooth. The road to success is always under construction. This life ain't set up to be smooth. You combat negativity and you combat discouragement with gratitude. It's the one way to combat discouragement is with gratitude. What messes you up is you focus on the thing that's not happening, and that causes you to get discouraged. So whenever you get discouraged, you have to change your focus from what's not happening to what has happened. And it straightens you out immediately. Because what causes the downslide is if you get wrapped up into what ain't happening, it get ugly, man. And it just snowballs. But you have to focus on gratitude. People understand how serious gratitude is. You know, it's a serious principle of success. It's hard to be miserable and grateful at the same time. I learned this at my mother's funeral, man, which was like the roughest. That week of my life was like chaotic, man. I thought I was gonna die. My mama passed, I was 40. I didn't do good, man. I thought I was crumbling. I really, man, I didn't know what that was, man. The most important person to me was gone. I was crushed. I thought I was gonna die. And at the funeral, my mother was a Sunday school teacher for 40 years. And I'm devastated. My mother's in a casket. That's just not the picture I ever wanted to see, right? And I was struggling with her being up there. And the preacher stood up and he said, I know y'all hurting. I got 2 brothers and 2 sisters. He said, but I want y'all to look around at this church. My mama had been a Sunday school teacher for 40 years. Church was packed. It was packed. He said, the overflow room is full. He said, we've put up projector screens in the parking lot. We don't do that on Easter. We done set up projector screens in the parking lot because so many people then came to see your mother off. Said, because your mother meant something to everybody. My mama's funeral was filled with the hood, the gangsters, the pimps, the hustlers, the dope boys, the police, the politicians, church people. He started talking about, he said, look how full this church is. Look at the lives she touched. Look what she meant to so many people. We got people in this church we ain't seen in years. He said, look at this. And I want you to think of all the incredible things your mother has ever done. And then he started listing the things she had done around the church and what people had said about her. And we started smiling. And this was the first time I had smiled in a week. That week was ugly for me. And he said, now listen to this. You see the smiles on your face? He said, joy and depression cannot reside in the same space. So when you get down and you start thinking about how dark it is, I want you to remember everything your mother taught you that was good. And that replaced all the negative thoughts I was having. Because joy and depression cannot reside in the same space. Well, now you got to take that concept and apply it to your life. If joy and depression cannot reside in the same place, when you get depressed and you get discouraged, you got to replace it with joy. And what more joyous than gratitude? What has God done for you? Didn't you wake up today? Ain't you still breathing? Don't you have some measure of health? Ain't you working? You may not have the car you want, but don't you have a car? Ain't you eating groceries today? You ain't homeless. Now, when you start tripping and you get depressed, you got to go into yourself and come up with some gratitude.
Mr. Bennett continues, if one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. Isn't that well said? Let's consider some approaches to managing our time most effectively. The first approach is to ignore the subject altogether. The man says, I've been late all my life. I can't ever seem to get a handle on my time. Heck with with it. I'll just struggle along the best I can. That's okay. It's your life, right? You can do with it as you please. But consider what this attitude might be costing you. Here's the second approach. Step down to something easier. Again, that's okay too. A man works for a company, then decides he wants to own one. When he gets that responsibility, comes to work before everyone else, leaves after everyone else, he now says, I would rather work for someone else's company. Hey, again, it's your life. Success is not a stereotype. There isn't just one model. Know clearly what success means to you and be comfortable with the price you pay for it. You might have heard the story of the little girl who complained to her mother that her daddy never had time to play with her. She said, why doesn't my daddy play with me? He comes home from work, goes to the study and work, comes out for dinner, goes back to work again. I want to play with my daddy. So her mother explained to her, your daddy is very busy. He loves you very much, and that is why he works so hard. At his office, he has so much work to do that he has to bring the rest of it home and finish it here. That is why he can't play with you. The little girl thought for a moment, trying to solve this problem, and came up with the answer. She said, well, why don't they just put him in a slower group? Hey, not a bad idea. Don't throw away other important values in your life just going for one. I went for some things in my life and found out later I had paid too much. If I had known how much they were going to cost, I never would have paid. So that is a consideration. The next approach to time management is to work longer and harder. And we all know the dangers there, right? Unless you aren't working at all, then you probably need to work longer and harder. But for some people, if 10 hours won't do it in a day, they work 12. And if 12 won't do, they move it up to 14. Some people even take on 2 jobs. And there are some very real dangers here, not least of which is health problems that result from not being able to handle the stress. So you've got to be careful with this approach. The last approach I think is the best, and that is to get more out of you. In the time you have assigned to labor, make the hours more valuable. The key is not to work harder, but to work smarter. If you're putting in about 8 or 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, that's about it. You can't work much harder. But remember, it's not the hours you put in that count. It's what you put in the hours. Get more from you to make the investment of time more valuable. And no telling how valuable you can become. We don't lack the capacity, we only lack the ideas and the will and the discipline to carry them out. In considering the subject of time management, remember that a big part of the key for changing is to take it in small steps. Most of us don't make revolutionary changes. We change a few degrees at a time. When you get some life momentum rolling, it's not that easy to make all the changes all at once. Hey, you can't whip a U-turn with the Queen Elizabeth II. When that big ship gets moving, they say it takes 7 miles just to get it stopped. So when it's really moving, you just have to nudge it a little, and finally you get it turned. That's a lot like our lives. A few nudges at a time.
How many of you know that it's hard building a thriving residual income on a monthly basis? Raise your hands. That's why most people won't say yeah. It's much easier to complain about the economy. It's much easier to complain about our elected officials. It's much easier to talk about the recession. That's much easier to come up with excuses why you can't do it. That's where I was. That's why I set up station for a long time. My mentor said something to me, Mike, wait, I want you to write this down. He said, anybody can complain. He said, if you do what is easy, that's complaining. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. Come on, that's strong medicine. If you do what is easy, complain about your situation, your circumstance. If you do what is easy, stand around and be a volunteer victim like everybody else. If you do what is easy, easy, surrender and give up on your dreams. Become depressed and bitter and angry. Anybody can do that. If you do what is easy, your life be hard. But if you do what is hard, keep coming back again and again and again. If you do what is hard, approaching strangers, talking to people in shopping malls, get up dressed every day, going out prospecting, knowing some way, somehow, with a spirit of expectation, somebody's out here looking for an opportunity. You can go outside right now and see some pigeons, but you're out hunting for eagles, and they're not common. And if you do that over and over and over again, somebody's going to show up. Somebody's going to say, I'm the one. Dr. Thurman, I love him so. What a great. He said there's something in each and every one of them that waits and listens to the voice of the genuine in yourself. It will be perhaps the only guide you will ever have. And if you cannot hear it, all of your life, your days will be spent on the ends of string that somebody else pulls. And I submit to you, you invested time and money, go to the airport, fly across country. I suggest to you, some of you drove here. I suggest you showed up because you said, I'm going to pull my own strings. I'm going to control my own life. Nobody will ever pull my strings again. Give yourselves a round of applause. I want you to write this down. Choosing your future. It's a program that we've created that's designed to put in place for you to work on yourself. A systematic process that changes your mindset. It's possible, it's necessary, it's you, it's hard, it's worth it, it's done. It's 6 CDs.
I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired of shortcuts. I'm tired of 15-year-olds being killed in drive-by shootings. I'm tired of 3-year-olds getting shot through a door in our own house plan because we won't talk about life. Somebody has got to have the courage to talk about life that is not just a straight line and everything that just fall into place. And Peter, the great apostle of the New Testament, is warming himself by the fire of the Romans, denying Jesus, and not just saying I'm not his disciple. He said, I don't even know him. It's a shame, but it's true. And what of Thomas? Thomas, who said, we must go and die with him. Where is he? Where is Thomas? Not in the upper room later when Jesus rose from the dead. Where is he at the cross? Because when Jesus left for Jerusalem, Thomas said, look it up, I must go and die with him. But when that dying got real, a lot of people say a lot of stuff until it gets real, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, to richer and for poor, till you pee on yourself. When it gets worse, don't be so carried away about what people say, because Thomas, who was ready to die for him, turns up MIA at the cross. I see John, I see Mary, I see the Roman soldiers. Where is Thomas at the cross? No wonder he doesn't show up in the upper room. Shame. No wonder he is not gathering with the rest of the disciples, because they heard him say, I will die with him. And they know he has shrank into the bushes and ran down the path and went over the hill and swam across the creek to get away from death. And what about Judas and his infamous betrayal of Jesus? I was reading a non-canonical book called The Gospel of Judas that has been discovered in the antiquities of history. And in it purports the ideology that Judas really wasn't trying to betray Jesus. He was trying to put Jesus in a situation where he would have to overthrow Rome so that the kingdom could come. And he thought that if he got Jesus in an open confrontation with Rome, that Jesus would show his power and rise to power, and he would finally take on politics and stop healing sick people. Because I'm tired of you healing sick people. That's not why I'm following you. I'm following you I want political power. And the trick blew up in his face, and he didn't know they were gonna kill him. If he knew they were going to kill him, then why did he hang himself? He hung himself because he got caught in his own web, and it cost somebody their life. And some of us have made decisions that cost other people their lives and their careers and their futures. And it's hard to live when you got the masterful plot and the plot goes wrong. Can I go deeper? I want to submit, just for your curiosity, it could be possible that had Judas not hung himself, he could have got the same. He could have come and fallen on his knees and said, forgive me. And I know you don't believe it, but I will defend it. If Jesus could be dying on the cross and say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, while they nailed him to the tree, then surely